The diplomatic standoff over Syria is deepening. In a moment, we'll speak to our correspondent Kimberly Halkett in Washington. We have Mike Hanna in Cairo, where the Arab League is meeting. Over in London, Rory Challenge is there, and he has the UK's reaction to possible intervention. And Fred Weir is standing by in Moscow for more on the Russian position. But first to the United Nations, and our diplomatic editor James Bays is there. James, reports that Western powers, in fact, have told the Syrian opposition to expect a strike within days. What are you hearing?
Well, that's what some members of the opposition say they've been told, and that's certainly what diplomats here are expecting. We know that no final decision has been made by President Obama, but just a talk from the Obama administration, I think, leads people to believe here that something is likely to happen soon. They've now gone as far as they've gone at any point in this conflict with their words, and it would be hard now to step back. Diplomats saying they believe that it's likely that something will happen sooner rather than later. There is a flurry of diplomatic activity here, and I suspect many more meetings will be taking place, none of them in the formal chambers of the United Nations. The Security Council is not meeting on Syria right now, and I suspect the Obama administration doesn't really want a meeting of the Security Council because it knows that Russia and China would block any action. What I think is going on is meetings between the missions here and meetings in national capitals, trying to persuade people, the US, the UK and France, trying to persuade other countries to join a coalition to support action. At the same time, you can be sure that the Russians will be going to various countries trying to persuade them that such action would be illegal.
Okay, James, thank you very much. That's James Bays reporting for us from the United Nations. Kimberly Halkett is joining us now from Washington. Kimberly, James there, just talking about action. Now, the U.S. military, these are according to reports, is ready to act on Syria immediately if asked. And this is according to, in fact, the Defense Secretary, Chuck Hagel. What type of action are we talking about here? How ready are they?
Well, there has some positioning, Doreen, that has been going on for a number of days. We've known that there are 4 destroyers that have been positioned into the eastern Mediterranean, as well as U.S. warplanes who are able to strike Syrian targets, as you point out, and as Chuck Hagel, the defense secretary, pointed out, whenever President Obama gives the call. But it's a call that we're not certain he is ready to make just yet. He is continuing to consult with his war planners, as well as the international community, and continuing to sort of strategize on how best to make the plan. We know that it will be limited in duration, in size and scope. One of the reasons for this is that not only is there the desire to disable Bashar al-Assad's air power in some way, but also that there is a desire by the American people not to draw soldiers into an all-out conflict. And so this is something that is, well, trying to, as Secretary of State John Kerry put on Monday, send sort of the message to Syria that an international norm cannot be violated without consequences. At the same time, it is something that needs to play domestically and satisfy the American people, that the U.S. soldiers are not being drawn into a long conflict that does not have the support of the ordinary American people. So this is something that the president is still trying to really make a delicate balance, trying to find that right balance, and that is one that we are told that he's continuing to consult with, and a decision will be made very imminently, but we are told that he will lay out his argument to the American people before any strikes are fired.
Okay, Kimberly, thank you. That's Kimberly Halkett reporting for us from Washington. Well, all the way in the Middle East and in Cairo, in fact, that is where the Arab League is meeting. And Mike Hanna is joining us from there to tell us what you're hearing, Mike, from that meeting.
Well, it's a meeting at ambassadors level, and very clear there are divisions within the 22-member league. We understand that while the bulk of members are blaming Syria for this chemical attack, the Syrian government, there are a number of the members who say that there must be an international investigation before outright condemnation can be delivered. So anybody looking for a united front from the Arab League likely to be disappointed. The question of whether or not to support military intervention, it is believed, has not even come up for discussion within the meeting so far.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much. That's Mike Hanna reporting for us from Cairo on what the Arab League's position is. And Fred Weir is joining us now out of Moscow. Fred, Russia speaking out strongly against any possible military intervention or strike.
Yes, well, the Russians have got themselves in a bit of a corner because they are not the former Soviet Union. They cannot, offer serious or credible threats of counter force, they can really, and they have said very clearly that they will do nothing actively to prevent or to try to block Western military action in Syria. So what's left to them is to stand by and make their arguments, their rather passionate appeals to world public opinion, pointing out, as you said, that without an enabling resolution from the Security Council, any military intervention in Syria would be illegal under international law. They have argued that any application of Western military force in that very, very delicate, multi-sided civil war that you kind of have in Syria will probably just spread, this combustible mix around the region further. They've done a lot of analyzing recent history, the past decade of American interventions, well, even since the Kosovo intervention in 1999, pointing out what messes every one of those has produced. But this is all that they really can do. They've made it clear that there wouldn't be any substantial Russian action. And even on the diplomatic front, they aren't the ones who canceled the bilateral meeting that's scheduled for tomorrow to talk about Syria and the Geneva process with the Americans.
Yeah, Fred, why exactly was that meeting
canceled?
Well, why was that meeting canceled?
Well, the United States said it's because they're engaged in consultative actions about the alleged chemical attack in Damascus last week. But it's clearly a message that the diplomatic efforts are off the front burner for now, at least. I think it's clearly a sign also to the Russians that the United States is probably displeased with the stance that they are taking.